This is a guide to prepare your assets for use with Taleweaver. As you may or may not know, Talespire has just released Taleweaver Lite, which is functionality that allows you to take custom minis and add them to Talespire. Now, there is a guide for using Taleweaver that includes things like installation, but what it assumes is that you have all of the parts needed for your asset ready. That includes the mesh, the texture, the normal file, and the I call it the Maior file, which is basically your metallic AO and roughness file, all in one. So a lot of assets don't necessarily have all those files provided, and some assets have multiple meshes and multiple textures. I misspelled textures, which is a problem because Taleweaver only supports a single mesh and a single texture. So this tutorial is going to show you on what you can do if you have an asset with multiple meshes, multiple textures, or you don't have the normal or the Maior map. This tutorial will tell you on what to do so that you can get your asset in Taleweaver. Now, I should say the process shown here is going to make sure that your asset gets into Talespire and looks reasonable. This process is relying on some automated steps, so if you do things by hand, you're potentially going to get better results. But if you're just looking to get something into Talespire and make it look good enough, this tutorial should cover that. Okay, so let's get started. To make this process work, we're going to need some software installed. Now again, if you're using a similar process, but not exactly, you can use different software, but this is what I am going to suggest that you install for following this process. So first thing, we are going to need Blender. You could use a different mesh editing software, 3D editing software, but I recommend Blender because one of the other software that we're going to install is a plugin for Blender. So you might be able to get the equivalent in a different software, but again, for this tutorial, I suggest starting with Blender and then picking up the Material Combiner plugin for Blender. So as I mentioned earlier, Taleweaver Lite allows you to have a single mesh and a single texture. Now, some assets come in multiple parts, so they have multiple meshes and multiple textures. In Blender, we're going to be able to combine those meshes into one, but we also need to do the same thing for the texture, because each part typically will have its own texture, and we need to combine that into a single one. You can do that manually in Blender, but this plugin, the Material Combiner plugin, makes that process a lot easier and automated, so I recommend downloading that and installing it in your Blender. Then, in order to make that Material AO roughness file, the easiest way, if you're doing it by hand, is to create separate channels in grayscale, so that the different channels don't conflict. And then I've created a Python script that will combine those channels together into the one AOR file. So in order to run that Python script, we're going to need Python installed, and in order to be able to use Python to work with images, we need Pillow for Python installed, which is really easy to do. I will go through that process for you. And lastly, as I alluded to, there is my merge Python script that will take the 4 different channels and merge them into one file to create that Mora file. Okay, so I'm not going to go through the process for installing Blender. That is a common software, and if you need instructions on how to install it, you can find lots of tutorials online. Similarly, I'm not going to go through the process of installing the Material Combiner plugin. I will try to provide a link for that at the end of this video, but the process for installing it is just like any other plugin, and you can find that online. Similarly, I'm not going to go through the process of installing Python. Again, Python is a very common interpreter, and you can find many tutorials online on how to install it. Once you got Python installed, to install Pillow is very easy. At the command prompt, just type pip install Pillow, and that will install Pillow for you. Pillow is just a library for Python that allows manipulation of images. And lastly, I will leave a link for the merge Python script so that you can download those and use those to create that Mora file. Okay, well, let's get started. Okay, so here we are in Blender, and I've pulled in an asset. The asset consists of Black Widow here and a nunchuck. Now, in my particular case, I downloaded these separately and put them together, which you can do if you have a character that you want to add weapons to or something like that. Or sometimes the asset itself will have multiple meshes. A shout out here to Creator234 for the Black Widow asset here, and to Goliath, Gloyus, for the nunchucks. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to take each asset and go to Object, Apply, All Transforms. This is necessary because in some cases, depending on the software that it came from, the asset could be scaled but not have the transforms applied, and that will tend to cause problems when you use the mesh combiner. So I'm going to do that for the nunchuck also. Okay, so now, as we said before, Taleweaver Lite does not allow you to have multiple meshes or multiple textures. So in this particular case, we have two meshes, and each of those meshes have one or more materials on them. So what we want to do is we want to combine the meshes and the materials. So we're going to start off by combining the materials. In order to do that, assuming you've installed that Material Combiner plugin, you're going to open out your side menu, typically by pressing N on the keyboard, or you can use your mouse to do that, and you should have a Material Combiner tab here. Okay, that will slide out to this panel. It's got a bunch of settings, but don't worry about that. Just go to the Generate Material list and click on that. That's going to identify all of the materials in your scene, and then we're going to click the Save Atlas to and select a location to save it to. And now what you will notice is in some cases the texturing does change a little bit, the look and feel of it. That's because on the original we probably had things like metallic and roughness set, whereas the combiner combines just the diffuse map, and so you lose some of that. But you can see that it still has all the texturing on it. But now if I go and look at the model, it's using a single combined texture. So now that we've got the texture combined, we are going to combine the meshes. And since we are not looking to make this manifold, like we're not going to be using it for 3D printing, so we don't need to make sure that we have a mesh that connects everywhere. We just want to make sure that we have one mesh. Joining those meshes is pretty easy. Just select both meshes in the scene, go over to your main screen and hit Control J. And nothing happens. Now, when you do the Control J, if nothing happens, then that typically means that the meshes are in a hierarchy and we may need to clear that before we can join them. So I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to go over to here and select Parent, Clear, and Keep Transformation. And then I should be able to delete this hierarchy here. And I'm going to do that same thing over here. Let's try it at this level. So Object, Parent, Clear. So what that is doing is if you have a hierarchy and your mesh is somewhere at the bottom of that hierarchy, it's removing that hierarchy, i.e. the clear, the parent, but the keep transform means that we leave the position, orientation, and location of the mesh where it was, even though it no longer has a parent. So typically, if you have a parent and the parent is creating a offset of position or rotation or scale, when you would remove the child from the parent, the child would no longer inherit those. When you do the clear with but maintain transform, those all remain applied. Okay, so let me see if I can join it now. Still having problems joining it. Okay, so in order to join it properly, I figured it out, you need to go down to the mesh level. So look for this little icon. So in this particular case, you can see that this asset still has, probably because of that chain, has many of these meshes. So I just need to select always 2 of them, go over to the main page and go Control J for join, and we can see that we're starting to join them all up. Now, typically your asset would not have this many meshes, hopefully. So this should be a pretty simple task. Here they've decided to make each chain link a different mesh, probably so that it could be potentially animated, but that's now causing me to have to go through all of this one by one and joining them all up into a master mesh. I'm betting there's probably a faster way to do this, but if there is, I don't know what that is, so we're almost there. Okay, and then I'm going to go over here, Object, Parent, Clear, and delete the hierarchy. Okay, so there's my nunchucks now, and there is my Black Widow. So now I can go select those 2, go over here, join, and yay, finally we have one mesh with everything combined. And that one mesh has one material that is also combined. So if we want to, we could actually go into UV editing and have a look at what it actually did. So this looks like it's the asset for Black Widow, and I'm guessing, not sure which this one is, but probably both of these are for the nunchucks. So it's basically taken what probably was 3 different textures and created one master texture with all of the UV properly adjusted. Okay, so we have a single mesh, check. We have a single texture, check. Okay, now we need a normals file. Now, in some cases, your asset will already come with a normals file, and in that case, yay, you're good to go. But if you do not have a normals file, this is how you can generate one. So, we're going to select our asset. We are going to go into shading. Okay, you will probably see something like this. This is basically our combined material coming in, wired to the base color and potentially alpha. And this is our principal shader with an output here. What we're going to do is we're going to click Add, Texture, Image Texture, and just place that anywhere. It doesn't really matter. So we've added a texture container, but we need to actually create a texture for that texture container to use. So we're going to hit New, and we can set the size here. I'm using, I believe, 1K textures here, so I'm going to just leave it at that. I'm going to type in maybe normal here so that I know what this texture is. If you're using higher resolution textures, increase your size to match. And then I'm going to hit OK. So that's now created a texture that we can use to basically bake our normal. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to this little camera, and we need to switch the rendering engine to cycles. This is important because you will not find the bake option unless you switch to cycles. Here under cycles, if you have a decent GPU, you might want to switch your rendering to GPU instead of CPU, since CPU is typically slower. But for our one texture, it probably isn't going to make a big difference because it's not like you're rendering thousands of frames. Okay, so we're going to go down to bake. Under bake type, we want normal, so we're going to ask it to bake the normal type. And then make sure that your asset is selected, the new texture that we added is selected, and then we're just going to hit bake. And what that's going to do is it's going to calculate the normals and place the resulting normal file into this container that we've added. Okay, so our normal file has baked here. Now we can go to this little hamburger menu. Under image, we have save as, so we can now save our normal file, and we're almost there. So now mesh, check. Texture, check. Normal file, check. So all that we have now left to do is the Maya file. The Maya file is basically a single file that has the metallic component of your materials in one channel, it has the AO in the second channel. It has nothing in the third channel, or the third channel is not used. Let's put it that way. And then it has the roughness in the fourth channel, which is typically alpha. So your typical channels are red, green, blue, alpha. So that means our red component needs to be our metallic. Our green component needs to be the AO. Our blue component is basically going to be unused. And the alpha is going to be our roughness. Okay, so again, if your asset comes with these textures, you may already be able to reuse some of those. If you have a sophisticated software like Substance Painter, you could probably get those generated from that. I don't know. I don't use Substance Painter. I only use free stuff. So I am going to show you how to basically do this by hand. Okay. Do note that doing it by hand is kind of the long way of doing it, because you're going to be basically painting your material by hand. Typically, if you're doing it by hand, you'll want to most likely just kind of apply more like blanket use of the metallic or whatever. So instead of going into fine details, you're probably going to kind of say, well, okay, everything here is shiny, metallic, everything here is not, and do something like that. So let's have a look at our texture for Black Widow and the nunchucks. So as we saw earlier when we went into UV edit mode and selected our combined texture, this is what we've come up with for, or this is what the combiner came up with for our texture, and that this is the UV layout. So what we want to do is, first of all, we want to get this UV reference. So you can go to UV, export UV layout, and I'm going to save that somewhere again. The reason we're getting this, obviously, is if we want to make some parts metallic, some parts not, we need to be able to know where in the texture certain things are. Okay, so let's open that up in a imaging software. Okay, so I'm just using paint.net here. You feel free to use whatever other software you like. So here we've got the layout for Black Widow and the nunchucks. Now, depending on how well your UV layout was done, this can be an easier process, or it could be a hard process. So we're starting off with metallic. So what we're going to do is we're going to forget about the AO, we're going to forget about the roughness, we're just going to focus on metallic. And we're going to make a grayscale image. Okay, so because it's metallic, that means anything that is white is very metallic, anything that is black is not metallic at all, and any shade in between is a variation of how much white it is. The more white, the more metallic it is. Okay, so On Black Widow itself, for simplicity, yes, Black Widow had a belt that probably had a metallic buckle, but I'm going to ignore that for the moment. I'm going to say that Black Widow is probably not metallic at all, so I'm going to fill in, make a layer here, and I'm going to fill her in with black. Okay, so now here we have these two other parts, I believe, are the nunchuck, and I'm guessing, again, probably have to experiment a little bit, but from the shapes of it, I am guessing that this section over here is the handle, and this is the chain. So I am going to make the handle also black. The handle is not metallic. And then I am going to make this, oh, whoops. And then I'm going to make the chain metallic, because it looked like it was metal. So let's do, I'm not having a good day today. Okay. And then this section is unused, so it doesn't really matter. I like to kind of throw a different color there. But really doesn't matter what you put there. Okay, so now we've made our metallic nap here. Again, I'm going very simple here, kind of extreme of this is not metallic at all, this is fully metallic. If you were trying to get some detail in there, you'd probably try to isolate which part of this Black Widow is the belt buckle, and maybe make that partially metallic or something like that. Here we're just going with some simple example. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the UV for a moment, and I'm going to save this as my metallic map, but I want to prepare it nicely for the that merge script. So we know that the metallic goes into the first channel, which is, again, the channels are RGBA. So this is going to be my red channel, so I'm going to save it with R. That's going to make it easier later. Okay, next is the AO, the green channel. I really have no understanding of the AO channel. I'm not sure exactly what it does. So I'm going to just make it all, one uniform color. But again, the process is exactly the same. You could use your, oops. Let's cheat and bring back our UVs. Okay, so I'm going to do just this for the AO. But again, the process would be the same, that if you wanted certain parts, a different amount of the AO, you could do that using your UV layout here. And then, again, just before saving it, you want to get rid of that UV and save it. So now the AO is the second channel, so RG. The third channel is not used by Taleweaver Light, so I tend to just make a black file. And that's going to be our blue channel, third channel. The merge script does need you to provide a third channel file. So it really doesn't matter what you put here. If you want to sign this with your signature, go right ahead, because again, Taleweaver doesn't use it. And then we've got our roughness. So I'm going to go back and get my UV again. Okay, so roughness. So let's say we want to make the Black Widow's outfit. It's not metallic, but it's kind of on the glossy side. So, little latex. So let's say we want to make that shiny. So again, it's the roughness. So white should mean full roughness. Dark should mean smooth. Smooth. So we are going to go with a fairly dark, but not fully for Black Widow. And then I think that the face, we do not want that shiny. We're going to probably want the face more rough. So I am going to grab a lighter color here. And this appears to be the face. It looks like they're probably using a mirror for that. In that we're seeing here only half a face. So they're probably just using the same thing for both sides. So I'm going to do that. Oops. Okay. So that's that. For the chain, we probably want that to be smooth. So let's maybe even go for the dark, for pure black. And the handle may be something in between. So let's do that. Okay, get rid of that. And there we have our RGBA, our last channel. That's our roughness channel. Okay, so now we have 4 files, grayscale files, and we need to get those together into one file so that we can use that for Taleweaver Lite. And that is where that Python script comes in. So I'm going to show you how to do that next. Okay, so what you're going to need to do is open up a Windows prompt. You can do that from your start menu, type CMD and press enter. If you're on a Linux machine, you're going to open up your terminal instead. But anyways, open up your Windows prompt and navigate to the folder where you saved your ARGB files. And that's the folder you should also copy or merge Python script into. I am assuming here that when you installed Python, the installation placed Python in your path directory, so you can call it from anywhere. If that's not the case, you're going to have to modify this command to address the fact that your Python is not accessible from everywhere. So you're going to type Python. That tells it that you're trying to run this Python script using the Python interpreter. You're going to provide the name of the script that you want to run, so that in this case is merge.py. And then this script expects 5 parameters. It expects the 4 channels that we're merging, and then it expects an output file name. Make sure that you are putting these in the correct order, because if you put them in the wrong order, it's not going to work right. So again, the channels are RGBA, and if you named them correctly when you were saving them, as opposed to metallic AO, blank and roughness, you can basically just do this. RGBA. Okay, so those are the 4 channels that we are 4 files that we're going to put into the 4 channels. and then outside the output file, we can call it, let's say, okay, and that's it. Press the button, and hopefully, if everything goes all right, you will see a new file get generated that has all 4 of those channels mixed. And now you're basically ready to take that into Taleweaver. You've got your mesh, you have your combined texture file, you have your normal file, and you have your Mayor file. So let's take it over to Taleweaver. Okay, so before we get out of Blender completely, there's one last thing we need to do, and that is select our asset, go to File, Export, FBX. Although you really don't need to have the textures embedded in your asset because we're going to import them individually, I like to switch this to copy and turn this on. This embeds the textures that the asset currently has into the FBX file, so that if I ever need to reuse the asset later, I don't have to worry about searching for the corresponding textures. And then we're just going to go to wherever we want to save it. Make sure that the asset is selected, and then you can select the limited to, so that we don't bring in our camera and light when we save this. And we can now save this. This is what we are going to get our mesh from. So let's save that. Okay, and now we can continue with the process. So now we want to take the results into Taleweaver and make our asset. The guide for that has already been made by Bouncy Rock. It is available at https://talespire.com/taleweaverlite-guide. So you can get it from there. The Python script for merging and a link to the Material Combiner plugin is available on the unofficial Talespire modding Discord in the tutorial section. There is a post there called Taleweaver Ready Assets. You can find links there to get that. So I am going to go through the process of actually using those files in Taleweaver fairly quickly, since the guide will provide more details on that. But yeah, I'll just go through that quickly so that you can see what the whole process is from this video. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so when you open up Taleweaver, the project should look something like this. Again, I'm not going through the process of installing the Taleweaver package into your Unity. You can use the official guide for doing that. Once this loads, we're going to want to hit new down here to say that we're creating a new character, and we are going to want to give the character a name. Once we've done that, click on Assets and create a new folder for your asset. You could just import it directly into Assets, but I like to be organized, so I create a subfolder. And then we are going to import our assets. So first, I'm going to import our mesh. So the mesh was right here. And next, we're going to want to import our texture files. Okay, so same thing. We just import new assets, and we're going to select our diffuse texture. We're going to select our normal, and we're going to select our layer file. Okay, so then we need to do small modification or settings on these files to make them usable. So we're going to first go to the diffuse, and we want to make sure that read-write is set and that sRGB is enabled. Apply that. Then we're going to select the two other files. We're going to make sure that read-write is enabled, but this time that sRGB is not enabled. Okay, now we should be good to go. So over here we have Black Widow. We're going to click on Mesh, and somewhere in this list you should see your mesh. There she is. Okay, then over here we're going to see our albedo texture, which is our diffuse. So that is going to get our combined texture file. Then we want the normal, so we're going to take the normal and drop the normal here, and then the layer file. So okay, so now we can see, oh boy, the orientation is definitely not right. So we're going to go here and click on Focus Creature for Rotation, and we're going to fix up the rotation. Make sure she's facing the right way. And then we're going to focus for translation to make sure that that we've got it properly set on the base. Okay, then we can just scroll down. So we've got translation looks like good, rotation looks good, scaling. Okay, so we're going to turn on. She's a medium-sized creature, so we're going to want to have a size here of 1. It is currently warning us that we're too far into the base, so we're going to go back to translation and lift that up until that disappears. Then we're going to go show creature for scale. Okay, and it looks like she's too big compared to regular sized other creatures. She appears to be a little too big, so we're going to go with scaling. And if you scale by the center, it will scale all proportions. If you scale by the ends, it's just going to go in that one direction. So I want to scale proportionally. And now, of course, we're going to have to translate. So I think maybe even a little bit smaller. Yeah, there we go. Translation. And you want to make sure that your character is nicely sitting on the floor here. Otherwise, when you bring him into Talespire, it's going to be like floating in the air. Okay, so we've got that part done. If you were making a character that was, for example, large, then you'd want to switch this to like 2. Or if you're making a small character, you want to switch that to half. But we're happy with the 1. Okay, so now we need to set points of interest. So head, we're just going to go up to the head. Spell target. Where do we want to make the spell target? Probably from her other hand. hit location usually is in the center of the chest. Torch, head level in front. And looks like we've got a bit of an angle to her. It's a little bit odd shape. It looks like her boots are right now standing straight, but the mesh seems to have a little bit of a tilt to the upper body, so I'm going to probably compensate for that a little bit. Rotation. Like that. Okay, and we've set that, so now we can set the photograph, thumbnail. So usually I go with, for this one, I go with a more headshot. And then usually for the other one, I tend to do a more full body. My understanding is that the small one is the portrait that's used inside the game, and this other one is not really used, but it generates that picture, which is ideal for when you're posting to mod.io, because you need a portrait there, and so that's the right size for mod.io. Okay, and then once we're done, all we do is hit save, and we can save our asset. Now, what's the difference between save and export from mod.io? Save will save it as a TS mod file, which you can then put into your mods folder, and it will show up then in your library under local content. The export from mod.io instead creates a zip file, which is used to upload that asset to mod.io. So I would highly recommend that, assuming your asset is legal to be shared, you need to double check that. If the license prohibits sharing of the asset, for example, if you got the asset from Hero Forge or something like that, like a paid source, typically you're not allowed to distribute it. So in that case, you have to use the save TS mod option, and then you would only share it with your small group, which typically is acceptable, as opposed to uploading it to mod.io, where it would be illegal because you're sharing it with a large number of people. So assuming that your asset is legal for distribution, then you can use the export mod.io. That will make a zip file of it, and you can upload it to mod.io to be shared with other people. But before doing that, I would highly recommend to use the save option anyways. First, test the asset locally to make sure it is working properly, and only if it is working properly, go back and hit the export for mod.io and upload it to mod.io. That way you make sure that you're not uploading anything to mod.io that isn't working correctly. It should be noted that if you do save as a TS mod file and later want to export for mod.io, you can use the load feature. Provide the location of your TS mod file, it will load that asset back up, and then you can just hit the export for mod.io. So you don't need to do those both at once. Obviously, the other option would be just to hit both of these right away, and then when you confirm that the mod is working properly locally, you've already got it also packed up for mod.io. Okay, so you've now saved it as a TS mod file. How do you use it in Talespire? Let's go through that. Okay, so here we are in Talespire. My Talespire has a bunch of mods loaded. You don't need to worry about that. This process works the same regardless of whether or not you have a modded Talespire or are using a completely regular vanilla Talespire. What you're going to want to do is go to the top right here to the settings wheel and scroll down, and you will see a open settings directory. So click on that, and that will open up a folder, and you want to go to the local content packs. This is where you can drop in your TS mod files, and they will show up in Talespire. So I will take my Black Widow TS mod file, copy, and then I will go back to here and I will drop it in. Now, this folder is monitored by Talespire in real time, so even with Talespire running, you can add files here and they will show up in Talespire. So there's our Black Widow. We're going to go back to Talespire and I will create a new campaign. Open that campaign up. And now when we open up our library, we can go over to the creatures, and if we scroll down to the very bottom, you will see that there is a local section, and you can see that I've got a bunch of local assets here, but there is Black Widow, and we can see that it's using that portrait that we captured during the Taleweaver process. And if I click on her, there she is. So that is how you add custom minis to Talespire using the Taleweaver process. This is how you can prepare your files for doing that. Once again, now that we've confirmed that the asset works, we could go to a mod.io, Talespire section. If you don't have an account, you need to make one, and then we could upload this asset to the store. And that's about it. I know these videos don't have great production quality, but they do have a lot of useful information. So please appease the YouTube algorithm goddess by casting the subscribe spell and then blasting your Eldritch Blast at the like button. It'll really help me out.